Welcome to the Mighty Mentality Mentor podcast, your weekly 15-minute discussion on the interplay between mindset, our skill set, and the results we get in life. I'm your host, NLOG. So last time we spoke about combating analysis paralysis, and we had kind of gone over some examples and a little bit of a tie-in back over to Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's flow model. And we had taken that and brought that flow model and integrated that with our MSR Feedback Loop model. And then after that, we had kind of gone over some examples from two separate domains that have nothing to do with each other. One domain being basketball and one domain being Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And we went over some examples with respect to how analysis paralysis can come to play and the various subsections, if you would, of skill sets and how to ensure that building specific sub-skill sets can really help you when you have a challenge in front of you. And then we ended up summarizing with the phrase, if you don't measure it, you don't manage it, being a good quote, but that great comes from knowing exactly where to manage, or where, in essence, to measure within a skill set. So we had kind of distilled it and boiled it down over to when working in hours, the minutes matter. When working in minutes, the seconds matter. And then when working in seconds, the milliseconds matter. So today we're going to be going over ownership mentality. What is ownership mentality? The various facets of ownership mentality, along with how can we apply ownership mentality into our daily lives. So let's get right into it. So what exactly is ownership mentality? Oliver Wyman Delta, a management consulting firm in the US, defines it as a true ownership culture is where employees feel a substantial personal stake in the company's performance. It creates a situation in which behavior is guided more by values than by rules, even when nobody is watching. People treat each spending decision as if they were, in fact, the owner. Another definition by Indeed is an ownership mindset is a belief that a person has accountability for the quality and outcome of their own work. And lastly, after cruising through the internet, I was able to find a nice article on Mental Vibe. I guess it's a website that they have articles and such. And in that particular article, they had mentioned that an ownership mindset is a way of thinking which emphasizes taking responsibility for your actions and decisions. And so if we really break down the term ownership mentality or ownership mindset, you can see that obviously ownership comes with the term owner within it, but it's a little bit more than just simply owning something or acting as the owner of a business. It's to also to take ownership for something, okay? And that's going to be kind of the pattern that we're going to be focusing in on, because at the end of the day, you don't necessarily have to be the owner to take ownership for something. You know, if you're managing or responsible for a department, you don't have to be the owner to treat it like it's your own department. For every spending decision that you have, you don't have to be the owner to treat it like it's your own money. You can take ownership at any point. And the mindset and mentality, of course, I mean, we're all on the same page with the definition of mindset and mentality. So I want our focus to really be on ensuring that we're taking ownership and treating it like it's ours, right? In the Oliver Wyman Delta example, in there, within that definition, it's very, very clear that employees feel a substantial personal stake in the company's performance. Okay, so personal being that you're treating it like it's your own, and I also want to take a moment here to shine light on the fact that it's more value based rather than rules. Okay, so even when nobody is watching, you can apply integrity, right? Because doing the right thing when nobody is watching, for many, is actually the definition of integrity. Again, same thing for the Indeed example. It's for the quality and outcome of their own work. So taking, I guess, not only just ownership, but taking pride in your work. Okay, that's huge. And then lastly, in the article on mental vibe, again, same thing, emphasizing taking responsibility for your action. So you can see there's a pattern emerging here that you're going to treat it like it's your own, and you're going to take care of it as though it was all yours, as though you were the owner. Okay? So what are some facets of ownership mentality? Some key aspects within ownership mentality could be accountability, being proactive, some long-term thinking, innovation, just trying to apply continuous improvement. Okay, your level of commitment really shines through within having ownership mentality, and you're really focused in on how you can in turn serve your customer, because ultimately at the end of the day we all have customers. Okay, and then lastly, efficiency. So if we're going to take a look at accountability, employees taking responsibility for their actions and decisions, understanding their impact on the organization or net effect. Okay, so understanding the downstream effects and understanding how can we make some adjustments on the upstream effects and work with some of our individuals and comrades to be able to ensure that we are providing the best possible work output. Okay? Proactiveness, individuals actively seeking out problems and trying to create opportunities and open up opportunities rather than simply waiting for tasks to be assigned to them, right? Having that proactive nature of finding what sort of issues may arise that we can avoid, and then also creating opportunities. And this goes into long-term thinking, because if you're proactive with the way that you're handling your book of business within your various workplaces or your careers, whether it's your work output or the departments or individuals that you may be responsible for, you're thinking with long-term thinking in mind. It's not a short-term sort of what's in it for me mentality, but you're thinking about the long-term or 10-year, sort of 10 years down the road mentality. Okay. Innovation, again, is also one of the facets of ownership mentality, and innovation really comes from understanding your process or your zone within the business and really seeing how can we make it better. And again, that also ties into long-term effects and long-term thinking, because again, you're less concerned about what it's sort of what's in it for me, and you're thinking about how can I give back. So how can I, within this role that I'm playing within the organization, how can I take the expertise that I have and apply that expertise to make suggestions for continuous improvement. Okay, Kaizen. And we'll get into Kaizen very, very much, moving forward here, but we're on a train of thought right now, so let's keep moving forward. Customer focus, again, everybody has a customer at the end of the day. Even when you are an owner of a business, your customer in many facets or many aspects rather, your customers are your employees, right? And as much as they serve the business, we as leaders, we serve them, right? Managers and leaders are not responsible for the work that is to be output. They are responsible for the people that are responsible for the work output. Okay? And that's when you turn a corner when you start thinking that way, because it's less about a competition with you and your employees and the people that you are responsible for, and it's more about how you can open up pathways for them. How can you clear the path? How can you help them? How can you empower them? How can you provide them tools and knowledge so as to ensure that they can do the job that they have in front of them in the best possible way? Okay. And then, of course, efficiency, which, in my opinion, efficiency and innovation kind of go hand in hand, because, you know, you first have to do something, and once that thing is being done, you know, obviously there's a lot of opportunity to fine tune and streamline that particular process or set of activities. But through continuous improvement and innovation comes efficiency. Okay, so again, they are a little bit, in my opinion anyway, they go hand in hand, but it's one of those things here, right? So how do we apply ownership mentality into our daily lives? Because thus far, everything that we've sort of talked about has been in the context of an individual playing a role within a larger organization. But how do we apply this ownership mentality to our daily lives? Like how do I become a more responsible individual and take more accountability for myself in my personal life? You know, there's a personal development aspect to it, obviously, and you know, you gotta set personal goals, because any goal that you don't write down is merely just a dream. Cliche as it sounds, I'm sure many of you have heard that phrase, or you know, that line of thinking. Okay, you know, you have to develop problem solving skills, you know, in order to really thrive in this day and age, and more than likely well into the future. You have to be able to solve problems, or bridge gaps, right? Because ultimately, life is hard. There's a lot of challenges in life, and a lot of things that might not go our way. But if you're able to bridge gaps and you're able to problem solve effectively, that's how you're able to create value. Okay. You know, learning continuously is also a very, very important aspect of personal development. You know, without continuous improvement and learning continuously, we're gonna get stagnant, and in our stagnancy, we will fall behind, because ultimately, you know, there's people out there, and not that competition between people is really that important, but ultimately, with advances in technology, advances in industries, and advances in the way that people do things, you are going to fall behind. You know, if you stay stagnant for too long, everybody else is going to end up moving forward, and in them moving forward and you staying at the same place relative to everybody else, you are going to fall behind. And so learning continuously is extremely important. You know, seeking feedback is also important, and you have to be mindful of who you're seeking that feedback from. You know, pay attention to an individual's propensity to give you the bad news. You know, there's a lot of folks out there that really want to make sure that they're not hurting their friends' feelings, but in our desire not to hurt our friends' feelings, what we're doing is we're failing our friends. You know, if we don't provide honest, objective feedback, what's going to happen is that individual is going to be off the mark on their current state. And so if they're off the mark on their current state, and they're trying to bridge a gap between their current state and an ideal or desired state, the gap might actually be larger than that which they've been told. So seeking feedback is extremely important, because as much as we want to be objective with ourselves, the ego, and I don't mean ego as in arrogance or conceitedness or anything like that. I mean ego is in like the Freudian definition of ego. The ego does not allow us to look at ourselves objectively. Okay, so we need to be able to seek feedback from not only our friends and our family, but multiple sources of feedback, so that we can receive different angles of a particular item, whether it's how we do things, our code of conduct, etc., etc. Because as much as you can zoom in and gain some depth from one angle, if you're going in there and you're only viewing an item from one angle, you may look at it and say that you are an expert of a square, and the square is the item that you're looking at and observing. And as much as you know everything about the square, you know its sheen, you know the shape of the square. Obviously, it's a equally sided four. As much as you know about the square, and you might know all the nitty gritty, all the little details, until you get another perspective, you might not realize that that square is actually simply one face of an entire cube. Okay, so that's profound. That's huge. All right. So, in conclusion, ownership mentality is our ability to take accountability for ourselves and the actions that we take on a daily basis. It's our essence with respect to being proactive, and it's our way to really get better. Because if you don't take ownership for yourself, and you don't take accountability, or excuse me, you're not accountable to yourself, and you're not accountable to other people, then it's very easy to live a life of cynicism. Okay, and we want to, as much as possible, avoid that. And then lastly, how do we apply this to our daily lives? We set personal goals. We develop problem solving skills and get better and better with our level of problem solving. We learn continuously. And lastly, we seek feedback. Thanks again for watching.